Hey, it's Thomas Cox here with another episode of Restoring Trust, the podcast that looks at how to restore trust and faith in the institutions that underpin Western civilization. We're doing that one elected official at a time, and today it's Mitchell Kelly, who is a candidate for auditor here in my home county of Clark County, Washington. Mitchell, thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
And I want to start off with our very first question. We ask the same questions of all candidates, and that is, what, in your view, is the purpose of government?
That's a great question. Thanks for asking. I've had extensive experience in government. For the past 15 years, I've worked in a variety of government functions. First, starting my career as an auditor, where I audited local governments to ensure the safeguarding of public assets and financial compliance with reporting standards, and also compliance with federal grants that the agencies may have received. And then for the past 10 years, I've been working in the auditor's office in Clark County, Washington, where I prepare the financial statements of the county. Me and my team prepare the financial statements, and I oversee the general ledger of Clark County. So in my view, and what I have seen is that government provides services to the citizens, and county governments, each government has a different purpose, of course. County governments have quite a wide range of services that they provide to its citizens, and also to ensure the transparency and accountability to its citizens. It has to have an infrastructure in order to provide that information. And there are checks and balances along the way to ensure that there's proper oversight of government spending. But Clark County is tasked with providing public safety as its paramount responsibility, which includes the sheriff's office, jail services, the court system, public defense and other services, but also providing accessible roads and public health and its citizens and services to other community members. Also ensuring that the structures, for example, community development, ensuring the structures that are built in the community are set to a certain standard, that they will be safe and can be accessible to its citizens. So it's a great question. I spoke more to county government, but of course there's school districts that provide education services. There's library districts that provide library services, fire districts that provide safeguarding of the citizens and response to fire situations. There's government should be serving its citizens. That's at the end of the day, that's what is the most important.
Got it. And then what is the specific purpose of the office for which you are running?
So the specific purpose for Clark County Auditor is there's a few functions. One of the most important ones is overseeing the elections process and ensuring that election laws are followed and election outcome can be relied upon. They also oversee the financial health of the county. It's a separately elected official that provides the financial oversight. It also processes and distributes the auto licensing part for the county. The state's responsibility is delegated to counties to distribute auto licensing, and then other recording documents such as marriage licenses, home sales and deeds. In Clark County, we also have an internal audit function where we have auditors that audit the county itself to ensure the processes are being appropriately followed by state law and internal county policy, and ensuring that there's safeguarding of public assets.
Gotcha. So it sounds like the purpose of the auditor is as a bundle of activities. You mentioned the elections
Yes,
and financial oversight, licensing like automobiles, recording key documents like marriages, and the internal audit function.
yes.
Is there anything else that you feel is important to mention about the role of the auditor as an office?
I find it really important that the role of the auditor, the elected auditor, should be nonpartisan and impartial. It's a separately elected position in Clark County, and I think it's really important that the individual that assumes that office has a very good understanding of what internal controls are, of what financial health looks like, of working with people of different backgrounds, being able to explain complex situations in a easily understandable way. One of the things I've noticed as I've spent time in Clark County as the financial and reporting manager is we have a lot of activity, and it can be quite complex. And um, in order for the citizens to understand, for example, how county finances function, it's important that somebody has a deep understanding of how that all works. Clark County, for example, has over 70 special revenue funds that have to be managed and treated as if it's their separate functions, separate businesses. And if somebody simplifies by saying that, doesn't understand that complexity, it can be easy to misunderstand how restrictions on funding can be, how they're supposed to be used by in accordance with state law and federal law. So it's really important that somebody understands um, the implications of what they're saying and doing, and can safeguard the public assets to be used in the way that the legislature has approved, that the citizens have approved for them to be used. For example, Clark County passed a public safety sales tax that is in one of those special revenue funds. And by looking at that special revenue sales tax fund, you'd be able to see clearly how that money is being spent. And um, and in the effort to be transparent, it's made it quite complex, which is kind of a contradiction a little bit. But it's important to understand how that is all set up, and be able to talk about it and explain
Yeah.
it, and be able to work with the right people, hire the right people, have a good team that's able to support the county's function, promote transparency, clarity, and calmness. I think in this time that's can be quite chaotic, with a lot of changes that are suggested or potential. Somebody that has the oversight and understanding of complex situations to implement those procedures to make it easy for citizens to access the services that the auditor provides, such as elections, accessing financial information, being able to license your vehicle, or have your home mortgage recorded appropriately. All of those things are really important, and are critical to everyday life of its citizens.
I think that actually leads us to my third question, and that is when the office of the auditor is being done well, what would the public see and hear?
When the auditor, well, in my opinion, it would be clean financial statements, or clean financial statements, confidence in the system, in the outcomes of the system, being able to access information and receive it in an understandable way. One of my goals in my role is to try to make financial information more accessible, and
Mm.
um, So the financial statements that Clark County prepares are quite complex. It's
Yeah.
over 200 pages with compliance with required reporting standards. And I took a change where I created a new report called the Popular Annual Financial Report that takes the complexities of the financials information and makes it in a simplified way so people can, so somebody who doesn't have an accounting degree or a deep understanding of finance should be able to understand the financial condition of the county. And so the citizens can review that information and understand it.
What was the name of the
And
report again that you created?
it's called the Popular Annual Financial Report, and it can be found on the Financial Services website, on the Clark County website.
Got it.
But that report that we have submitted to our oversight agency called the Government Finance Officers Association has received multiple awards throughout its presentation that I've prepared. We also made it accessible to and put it in the libraries once it's submitted in Clark County. And because my desire is that people have the information that they need in order to feel comfortable and confident that the county is working as it should. And that's how I have handled myself throughout my career. And that's my goal for the auditor's office, should I assume the role and be so lucky to be elected.
Got you. So I think we're transitioning to the next question, which is, what are the most important issues you see facing the office of the auditor in the coming 4 years?
Well, especially with Auditor Kimsey, who's retiring, I think it's important that people have confidence in the transition that's going to happen, and that the processes that the county's citizens and public have relied on can continue to feel confident that they will be done in accordance with state and federal law, and that any changes that may happen will be clearly understood, and that the citizens have the information they need to cast their ballot and make sure that their vote counts, to rely on financial information that they receive, to know that the county is auditing its other departments internally and safeguarding the county's resources and the taxpayers' money, and that it's being used appropriately as it's been designated to be used, and then receiving the services of recording and auto licensing that they need to receive. That all of that functions well. That there's no unneeded chaos that's entered into the system. That it's calm and continues to function in the way that it should, and that the citizens can continue to rely on the government the Clark County government to provide these critical services.
Got it. So I'm hearing confidence in the transition, since the current auditor is retiring, and people should have that top issues. Again, that people have confidence in the county's operations as reflected through your audits, and knowledge or confidence that the resources that the county is spending are being spent correctly, that the resources are safeguarded, and that the direct public-facing services coming from the auditor's office function well, and let's just say boringly, maybe,
Yes, yes, yeah.
to
If
insert
it's
my
not,
own word there.
yes, yeah. If you don't hear too much about it, then that's a good thing, I think. But of course, the auditor, Clark County gets audited every year by the state auditor's office to ensure compliance with federal and state law, federal grant laws, and state law and federal guidelines for reporting requirements. We're close to finishing our audit for the 2025 year. But the past few years, we've had wonderful results in our audits that have been rigorously reviewed by the county, by the state auditor's office, and with positive results of the county.
Got it. My next topic is more focused on specifically the topic of our podcast, which is institutional decay and institutional trust. Uh, are there any areas where you perceive or are concerned about institutional decay, either in the office of the auditor or any of the systems around it?
I do value the importance of asking questions, um, and I think that's an important part of our democracy. That
Yeah.
people have, if they have questions, if they want to understand processes more clearly, they should be able to ask them, and I think that's important. What does concern me, though, is when misinformation or disinformation is um, distributed and not followed up with.
Mm,
Um, in my role, I am I am willing to share with anyone any information that they request. If they have questions about finances at the county, I welcome anybody asking any question, and I would gladly provide them with any answer. But sometimes there are um, individuals that make misstatements or share things that are not accurate without even
mm,
trying to get to the bottom of whatever they're trying to get to the, not having the actual information they need.
sure.
And that is one of the most challenging situations. Of course, I want to welcome questions. I think that's an important part of of our democracy, and
Mm,
it should be encouraged. But once information is provided and any question that may be had is resolved, that they shouldn't, in my opinion, that should be um, shared clearly and not misrepresented.
right.
And unfortunately, that's that has happened. That does happen,
Sure.
um, and it's a fine line. It's a
Yeah.
tricky. That's a part of how um, our great country works. That we want people to ask questions,
Yeah.
and of course, we're going to have differing of opinions, and even I have differing opinions at times of um, maybe some rules that I need to follow, but I follow them and make sure that they're complied with and that people understand the avenues that they need to in order if they want change to happen.
Mhm.
But um,
If I can ask a follow-up question
sure.
on so areas of concern around institutional decay, you mentioned you value asking questions, you are concerned about mis and disinformation being shared, and I'm sensing that based on your answer, you've had some experiences of people saying something publicly that's not doesn't seem to you to comport with reality. You then provide your version of reality to them, and then that person continues to say the prior thing or doesn't acknowledge or reflect that they've been informed in this new way. Um, and I suspect that that's an eternal struggle that every layer of government will always have.
Yeah.
Is there anything specifically that you feel that the auditor's office should do in the face of that, that either that it's already doing and you need to continue, or some new thing that you need to start doing?
My approach has been to provide the information and to share it and welcome any questions that people have. I That's been my approach, and I think that that is the best approach. We need to stay impartial as the auditor and objective, but um, uh, and specifically with financial reporting, there's a lot of rules that we have to follow. So that's pretty cut and dry as far as
Sure.
reporting. But there are situations where we have to make judgments, and if somebody has information that we need to consider, I welcome it. A lot
Yeah.
of the issues that the county deals with are quite complex
Yeah.
and have a lot of moving pieces, and they need to be evaluated. And any information is valuable information. But my approach has always been to have an open door, to listen to people, um, help understand where they're coming from, provide them the information that is available to me based on the understandings that we have with um, the different parties, the different
Right.
stakeholders that are sharing the information with me. But it's and like you said, it's a ongoing. It will be that's part of government. That is part of government is that we continue um, to be a more perfect union. I guess we're continuing to work on that.
At the risk of taking up more of the interview time on my drill ins. So obviously my podcast is about institutional trust and the deterioration of people's trust in institutions. And clearly, if there's, let's say, the level of baseline mistrust is some number, and some of the mistrusting people ask the auditor questions and they don't believe the answer, they don't like the answer contradicts some other thing that they've seen or heard. That is probably the cutting edge of people gaining or losing faith in that institution or whichever institution you've audited and that now you're reporting on. Uh, is there anything that needs specifically around handling the questions of skeptics who seem resistant to the auditor's answers? Is there something that you should do that you aren't, or there's something you're doing that works as well as anything can? You just want to make sure you keep doing more of it? Because this feels like it's right on the cutting edge of what this topic is for us, of
Yeah,
people having faith in their government institutions.
that's a great question, and I would love a perfect answer.
Oh,
I will say for me, and I think the most important thing is that somebody is approachable and wants to understand the concern and provide the information that is the accurate information that is available.
right.
Um, there there are a lot of systems, of course, can always be improved, but
Mhm.
um, and questions that should be answered, and um, we're all we need to share the information in an understandable way. I think that's can be a barrier at times because um, there's a lot of information and it can be overwhelming at times.
Sure.
So to under help people understand the information in
Yeah.
clear format, I think is helpful. But
Yeah.
that is something I have worked hard to do, and I continue to work hard to do to help people understand and have an open book. Just if people have questions, and they do, I receive public records requests frequently where I need to provide information about a certain activity that the county has, and I want to make sure they understand
Right.
what it is. And
You're reminding
um,
me of an incident some years ago. Someone was complaining. They'd gotten a hold of the CAFR, the Comprehensive Annual
yes,
Financial Report for, I think it was Multnomah County.
okay,
And they were complaining that the county said it didn't have money, but here in the CAFR, it shows that they've got, X billion dollars worth of, I don't know, big bridges or something. And I'm like, well, okay. And I try to say, look, a bridge is not worth zero, so it's an asset. I didn't know if it was bridges or what they were looking at, but it was something
yeah,
that was clearly like not a cash equivalent that you could
right,
like go sell and use to fund operations. And I realized I was going to struggle to attempt to convey what I thought I understood about her complaint in a way that would be accessible to her. And I realized, wow, I imagine that happens a lot
yes,
where people they see numbers, they think they understand what they mean, and once you start to think you understand what's going on and you don't like it, you can get very suspicious very quickly because,
yeah,
well, what is it? Somebody said that everyone's got an opinion, but money is its own thing.
yes,
And if you, what do they say, follow the money to find out what's really going on in any operation or enterprise, which is, I
right,
suspect, why the auditor office is so important and why there's four different people running for it right now.
right.
Uh, let's see.
Well, to that point, can I just
Yeah.
mention? I mean, you're talking about something that's really important and
Sure.
is hard to understand as a non-finance or accounting person. And
Right.
another complex thing about government that I've spoken on briefly is Clark County, for example, has over 70 funds. So each fund is like its own business and can only do the business of that fund. For
Right.
example, the Community Development Planning and Code Fund receives money to review permits, and it can't do anything else. It's
Right.
legally required to only provide that service.
Right.
So some
So
years,
money comes in, it's
yes,
earmarked for that, and
right,
it cannot be spent on anything other than that,
right,
no
right.
matter what. It's like, oh, but we like need coffee. That's too bad.
It's
This
too bad.
we don't spend
Exactly.
those dollars on anything other than the thing it's earmarked to do.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right.
And that's state law or federal laws regarding grants. We see Clark
Right.
County, for example, receives a lot of grant funding that's restricted. We can't use a grant for housing the unhoused to fund public safety. That's not an
Right.
allowable use. And so
Right.
it's really important and critical, and that can be complex. And people can what I've seen is that sometimes people don't fully understand
Oh, sure.
how that is set up, and exactly like the county's assets. Well, we have assets like roads and bridges, as you mentioned, but we can't turn that into cash. We're not going to sell a
Right.
bridge to somebody.
No.
So yeah, it is an important thing to understand, and I've worked
Yeah.
with um, the government accounting standards boards to talk about some of these challenges that we have for reporting.
Mhm.
And as you mentioned, the ACFR, it's now called the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. They switched it, so it's Annual Comprehensive
I
Financial
see.
Report, but it's the same report.
You
But
can
to
tell
make
how
it
long it
more
was ago
understandable,
that I had
yes,
that. Yes.
yeah. Just letting you know that's been an update recent. But anyway, so yeah, that's important, but it's complex, and I want to make sure that people have the information they need.
Right. It's been said that doing fund accounting is itself an expensive and effortful activity, and that itself consumes resources. Uh, by one estimate, it could take 10 to 20% of the total budget in the accounting function to handle the overhead of accurately and precisely tracking all of the obligations and reporting requirements of every dollar you receive. Uh, is that an area that you I'm jumping ahead. That's specific plans for your term in office. I'm going to back up a question. Hold that
Okay.
thought.
Okay.
Um, I'd mentioned areas of concern about institutional decay. What role do you see for the Office of the Auditor in reversing institutional decay? Not to assume that it is or isn't happening, but as a function, does it have a role in that?
I think providing accurate information would be the most important thing, and answering the questions as they arise. Of course, if any question comes up and that we don't answer it, that could lead to mistrust or distrust.
Of course.
Um, but answering it clearly and making sure that the honest questions that are being sent to the auditor are answered timely and clearly. I think that helps build trust. And then following the reporting standards, I think that also builds trust. Having accurate and successful audits builds trust in the system
Sure.
that we have in place. And all of that the county is currently doing, and I am encouraged to continue doing that. There of course are going to be individuals that want more information, and I'd happy to meet with them or understand their concerns. But that's all part of government and providing services to the county citizens.
Got it. Okay, so I'm going to get back to the thing I paused. Specific plans that you may have for your term in office if you are elected.
Specific plans. I want to make sure that the citizens have the information they need, that during these times there are a lot of changes happening in reporting and also potentially in elections, that they have the resources and education that they need in order to make sure their vote counts, make sure the information that they're receiving is accurate and reliable. And I want to make sure that the county continues calmly and securely safeguarding our county's resources. Um, so the, so I see myself as continuing to do a lot of the and evaluating the internal controls if there ever is a concern of what citizens may have to implement any um, changes or update or inform people of what they may not understand. I feel like being a clear communicator and a calm leader are important in this time where we can uh, continue and provide the information to the county citizens that they can rely on.
Got it. Uh, I admit I don't actually know what the auditor's office has set up now in terms of outbound communication
Yeah,
to folks. Is there like is every question that comes in, I assume, becomes a public record because when I send an official letter, it's like there it is, it's in the public record.
yes.
Uh, do you publish all the questions you get with your answers on a website, or
There is a
could you? Does anybody
database.
care?
Yeah, there
Yeah,
is a database that, and depending on the requester, if they want it to be public or not, um, um, that's an interesting question. I know I've responded to a lot of public records requests, and I can definitely look into making sure that those answers, those types of
I, I'm
answers,
not saying that's a good idea. I'm just
yeah.
wondering. It
Well,
popped
a
into
lot of
my head as you
people
were
have
talking.
the same questions um,
Right.
a lot of times. So
Sure.
that's an interesting idea I hadn't really considered. But there are times where people ask questions and they don't want uh, that question to be public. So
Sure.
um,
It might be
uh,
self-revealing in some way and what
something.
have you. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an interesting question. I do think I do think that having accessible information is important, and there's a big project going on in the auditor's office to
Hmm.
evaluate how our public-facing website is accessible or not, and we're working on improving the accessibility of our reports. Some of them are complicated, so it's hard to understand them, but they're available. And then my effort in the past few years to make this popular annual financial report is something I feel very proud about.
Mhm.
Um, Trying to make our complex information understandable, and I'm always open to feedback if from the counselors or citizens that say I'd like to know information about this. I would welcome any question that anybody has and evaluate how we can include that
Gotcha.
in our annual reports.
Well, I look forward to getting my copy of your popular annual financial report and admiring it.
I
Uh,
can send you the most recent one if you'd like,
that
and
would
you
be
can have
lovely.
it. I certainly will do
Thank
that.
you. So my final question in my prepared questions, and I want to acknowledge are over time, and I apologize for that, uh, is how did you choose the priorities that you mentioned?
Um, so I chose the priorities just because they're, to me, the most important and my value system. And that's what I see a successful office moving forward should contain. I also recognize a lot of the questions that I personally have received or have heard of
Yeah,
in the auditor's office that are consistent questions. So that's really hoping that I can be of service to the citizens of Clark County, that they can feel confident that I am trying to make sure that they have the information and are and accessible to the services such as voting and auto licensing and recording documents, that they have access to those systems.
Got it. Okay. Are there other things that you wish I'd asked you that I didn't, particularly on the topic of institutional trust
I
or
think it's
any other
important.
topic, frankly?
I think for the topic of institutional trust, I think it's important that people ask questions respectfully and openly, and are open to understanding and accepting information. I think it's important. It's an important part of our democracy that we, of course, ask questions, but do so respectfully and
Mm.
with an open mind. That
Right.
there's information that I can provide to you and information that I'll receive from citizens or questions that need to be answered. And moving forward together, I think, is the most important way we can repair this distrust in institutional organizations and keep progressing forward.
Super. Brilliant. I really appreciate your time, and I wish you the very best of luck in your race for county auditor in Washington, in Clark County, Washington. Mitchell Kelly has been my guest. I'm Thomas Cox, and this is Restoring Trust, one institution at a time. Thank you for watching, and we'll be back with more again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.